Envisaged echoes, how endgame thy content are, for mere cosmetics. Man, screw poetry. Fortunately, despite taking a few attempts for me to solve, this one is not actually that hard once you realize what strategy you gotta use. The first phase is, big shocker, a breeze. No pun intended. It's just a few waves of mobs full of inherent elemental affiliations just waiting to be swirled up 6 ways from Sunday. This part basically just serves as a DPS check to ensure no one who forgot to put artifacts on KAZUHA or something like that can finish the challenge. Just spam the hold version of your elemental skill whenever it gets off cooldown to group up enemies and use your elemental burst whenever you get it. Just spamming your normal attacks during the short time in between using these should serve you just fine. On the off chance you are having trouble here, just try your best to use your elemental skill near the center of where the enemies are to group them up so that your normal attacks and burst can just hit all of them.
One with nature. The wind knows me.
You're then going to be taken to this weird in-between challenge stage where you have to light up these pyro monuments. Once you light up one, you're going to be on a timer to light up the rest, but it's a piece of cake if you know what order to do this in. This torch here on the left is going to remain lit, so what you want to do is use your elemental skill near it, and then use your plunging attack once it's absorbed pyro to light the one next to it. This torch does go out, so you use this one first. You use this to absorb the pyro from it, then light up the 2 monuments to it on the right. Then you simply walk over to the one on the left and use the fire in that one to light the one next to that. Simple. Bada bing, bada boom. You won't even spend 2 minutes in here. At least the stage looks nice. Nicest looking Envisaged Echo stage so far. But anyway, you're then going to use the wind current and your elemental skill to get up to the part of the challenge you're all actually here for. So in this challenge, you have to take down 2 bounty, air quotes, bosses. And these are hilly churro rogues, I think they're called, but I just call them scumbags. Anyway, this challenge is set up so that these guys are practically invincible. They'd laugh in the face of your C6 shoguns if they could. To remove their god mode hacks, you first have to hit this fan in the center of the room with a plunging attack infused with the element that is emblazoned upon it. For the first boss, it will be Electro, and for the second boss, it will be Cryo. Slimes of these elements are going to respond to the right of where each boss is going to spawn respectively, which is where you're going to get these infusions from. The first Electro one is pretty easy. The boss is going to spawn directly in the opposite side of the room where you entered, so the Electro slime will spawn a little to the right of that. If you position yourself more towards that direction when you start the challenge, you'll even be able to hit the slime with a tap version of your elemental skill and be able to make it over to the fan in the center to plunging attack it before you hit the ground. If you do need to use the hold version, however, it's really no big deal. It just saves a second or 2 and helps you with the elemental skill cooldown a little. You're also not going to need to kill the slimes. They're just here to help you with elemental reactions to help you kill the bosses. So once you turn off the boss's god mode, you can just run up to him and blast him with your elemental burst and elemental skill. No real reason to save either of them initially. You kind of just spam him at him, similar to how you dealt with the earlier wave. However, the second boss is a bit trickier, mainly because absorbing the cryo from this slime can be messed up by being affected by another element like Hydro left over from your scuffle with the first boss. If you don't absorb the cryo from this slime as soon as it spawns, you're probably going to have to reset. Not because you don't have the time to do it again. This challenge is actually very lenient with its timer, at least with the DPS that I had, and my KAZUHA isn't even that focused on DPS, but the problem is that if you don't get the cryo infusion immediately, the enemies on the second wave are going to just get closer to each other, and hitting the cryo slime specifically with your elemental skill without hitting either of the other enemies is going to be practically impossible. So here's what I recommend. When you're finishing off the first boss, count 2 elemental bursts and 2 elemental skills, at least if you have good energy recharge like what I have. Equipping a Favonius Sword like what I'm using here can and will help you with that. After you've used the second elemental burst, you simply walk away. and you use the time that it takes the burst to kill the boss to double as time that you're using to let any elements you got affected with during that fight to wear off, so that you won't have any problem absorbing cryo from the slime on the second wave immediately once it spawns. The second boss will spawn on the right side of the room, and that slime is going to spawn to the right side of him. Position yourself in accordance with this so that as soon as the first boss dies to your elemental burst, you can immediately hit the slime with the elemental skill, float over to the fan, and plunging attack it to turn off the second boss's god mode. If you manage to do this quickly and correctly, then you've practically won the challenge. Just run over to the boss, dump your skill and burst into him as soon as you get them, and soon enough, he'll be done. Like I said, my KAZUHA'S DPS isn't even that high, and I still almost have half a minute to spare, so I really don't think you have to worry about the build too much. Similar to the Gene challenge, I think energy recharge is the only thing that really matters here. You need a little DPS, yes, but with the elemental reactions you're going to be getting on the bosses thanks to the slimes, as long as you have enough decent elemental mastery stat or decent attack, then you should be alright. This is mostly just a matter of strategy, which is how I like these challenges. If you can disarm the boss's god modes ASAP, then everything else should be a cakewalk. To show you my build, I used a Favonius Sword, like I said, leveled up a bit but not maxed out, refined a bit but again not maxed out. You don't even need one this good. Just give him the best Favonius Sword or worst case scenario other energy recharge sword that you got and you'll be a-okay. Got him on 4-set Viridescence, and just like all my other characters, the main stats are good and the substats not so much. No constellations, all talents level 9, decent, but by no means any build that you'd have to really work hard for if you've been using this character semi-consistently. While this challenge did take a few attempts to get the strategy down, once you know what to do, you'll have more time to do it than any other Envisaged Deco challenge that I've attempted so far. And for what I think is one of the best looking echoes. Once you give it a couple tries, get used to the timing and positioning, I'm sure you'll be able to get it no problem.